Hey guys, welcome to Pounds Invested. I'm your host, Stephen Georgiev. So, in today's video, we're going to talk about 6 financial goals to aim for by the time you hit 30. I really want to thank those of you who have seen my other videos and who have subscribed to my channel already. If you are finding this content useful, please do consider subscribing. Now, the first thing that I want to make clear is that these are things to aim for, not necessarily things to feel bad about if we don't achieve, because of course everyone's circumstances are different. And so with that in mind, it's really important, guys, to focus on direction and not speed. Are you on the trajectory to achieving some of these goals? You don't necessarily have to be there by 30, just making sure that you're going in the right direction. So with that said, let's move on to our first financial goal. The goal of what I call getting to zero. So what does this mean in practice? Well, generally, in our 20s, we graduate university, we take the first few tentative steps on the career ladder. And as we're doing that, a lot of us are burdened by debt. Now, we all know that there are 2 certainties during Freshers' Fair. One is that Domino's and Pizza Hut will be giving out free pizza, and the second is that banks and financial institutions are going to be there trying to get you to sign up to their credit card. And so, if you have any credit cards or student loans hanging around your neck from your university days, the first thing that you should try to do is to get them paid off by the time you hit 30. Now, again, everyone's circumstances are different and everyone has different starting points. Some people have no debt from university and no credit cards. Some people have tens of thousands of pounds on both. So whether or not you achieve net zero, it's really important to make strides in that direction. Once you've done that, we can move on to our second financial goal, which is to turn our income into our assets. So we can think of our salary as a river which is flowing constantly. Every month when we work, we get paid, and so the river of money flows from the employer into our bank accounts. Now, we can think of our assets as being a reservoir. So our assets are a build-up of money which we've saved from our salary and set aside somewhere. And the first place that you should set aside this money is into an emergency fund. So typically this would look like a 3 or 6 month emergency fund to cover all of your expenses during that period. Because guys, like we can see during the coronavirus pandemic, emergencies do happen. You may well have reduced hours at work, or you might even get laid off altogether. So the takeaway from financial goal number 2 is that even if the river of salary stops flowing for whatever reason, you will have made up your emergency fund, which you can then access in order to cover that shortfall. Now, once you've built up your emergency fund, the next reservoir that you should start to fill is to start drip feeding money into an investment account. This could be something like 100 or even £50 per month. And the best and easiest way to get started with investing is with an index fund. Or better still, a handful of index funds. And for my video on how to get started investing in index funds, click the link up here and go watch that video, and then perhaps come back and finish off this one. So why is it really important to start investing at this point when you've paid off your debts and you've built up an emergency fund? Well, it's really important because right now you're used to living without the £200 or £300 per month that your student loans and other debts have cost you. So you're used to not having that money in your bank account. But now, rather than having it go towards paying off your credit cards or student loans, you can have it going towards your future financial stability by having it invested and having it growing because of the miracle of compound interest. So if you invest £200 per month for 10 years at a market average 7% return rate per year, you'll end up with £34,000. Now, at the end of 10 years, imagine how much more solid your financial position is going to be when you have a £34,000 investment portfolio behind you. So it's much better to have paid your future self rather than having paid Amazon Prime or Uber Eats. Now, this brings me on to my third financial goal by the time you hit 30. So the third financial goal by the time you hit 30 is to get over a fear that you might have. Now, it's a perfectly rational fear, and this is the fear of investing. But here's the thing, guys. You can't be financially secure or financially free just by saving money. This is because of the spectre of inflation. So during my own lifetime, as we can see from this chart right here, the value of the pound has collapsed by about 60% since 1990. This means that if over that period you'd simply had your money sitting in a bank account, your money would now be worth 60% less than it was 28 or 30 years ago. Now, is there a way out of this problem? Well, yes there is, thankfully. So it's so much better if you allow the stock market to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you when it comes to investment and growth. So the takeaway from financial goal number 3 is that you cannot get rich by simply saving money in a bank account. You have to get it off the sidelines and start having it grow for you. Financial goal number 4 is actually more of a mindset shift. It's really important, guys, to get into the habit of paying yourself first. So what do I mean by that? Well, what most people do is they get their salary at the end of the month, then they pay their rent, they pay their bills, they pay Amazon Prime, they pay Uber Eats, and then hopefully in 3.5 weeks' time, there's something left over for them to save. Well, let's face it, guys, that really is a recipe for financial ruin. There's a much better way though, and this is to flip that idea on its head. How does this work? Well, the first thing that you should do when you get paid is to pay yourself first. How do you do that? Well, you set aside a percentage of your salary automatically, and this is the key, to automate setting aside a percentage of your salary. Even if it's something as small as 5 or 10%, but do it automatically so then you don't even have to think about it. And then make it so that that money goes into a savings account or into a general investment account. And do this, crucially, as soon as you get paid, maybe the day after you get paid. Then, once you've invested a percentage of your salary each month, you can then spend the rest. So therefore, you don't have to think about what you can save after you've spent. Rather, you think about what you can spend after you've saved and invested. That's a much better way of looking at things because it means that you're getting closer to your financial goals rather than necessarily getting further away by self-sabotaging yourself. And again, guys, it's really important to think about direction and not speed with things like this. Start with something like 10 or 20 or 50 pounds per month, something you're comfortable with, something you can commit to, most crucially, something you can automate. Financial goal number 5 is to diversify your income streams. You shouldn't really be relying solely on your employer for your paycheck. So why is that the case? Well, as we can see during the coronavirus pandemic, or really during any financial downturn, a lot of people can have the misfortune of getting laid off. And if those people have simply been relying on their employer for their financial livelihoods, then they're going to be in a bit of an awkward situation if they do have the misfortune of getting laid off, because they'll have no access to any other streams of income and any other money coming in. So what are some streams of income that you can set up very quickly and easily? Maybe you have a maths degree or a chemistry degree or a languages degree, or maybe there's a skill you can do. Maybe you're really good with tools. So there will always be something that you can teach someone. And in a lot of cases, people will pay you for access to your skills and your knowledge. So it's a really easy side hustle to set up. And the more streams of income you have, the less the impact is going to be of any one particular stream of income drying up at any one point. Okay guys, so we've reached financial goal number 6, and it really is one of my favourite goals. So it's really important, guys, to set up a financial date with yourself. This can be on either a monthly or, if you need to, a weekly basis. And it's literally just checking in over the week or that month to see how your progress is going against what you planned. Now, I get it. You know, there are always going to be unplanned expenses. There are always going to be things that go wrong and maybe threaten to derail you. But like we keep saying, guys, focus on the direction and not the speed. Make sure you're moving in the right direction. Don't get so hung up about how quickly you're going there. And one way to make sure that you're going in the right direction is to keep tabs on how your financial well-being is going. Now, one really simple way of doing this is using a really simple spreadsheet. So on the one side of the column, you have each of your monthly incomings. So this could be salary. And on the other side of the spreadsheet, you have all of your outgoings per month. You know, your rent, your bills, your living expenses, and all of the other stuff that we pay on a monthly basis. And hopefully at the bottom, you have a positive number. Now, that positive number is effectively what's known as your net worth. Think of it as what you own minus what you owe. Now, don't be worried if in your 20s that number is negative, because for a lot of people it will be, because a lot of people, like we said at the beginning, are paying off student debts or credit card debts or other debts, and so they might temporarily at the beginning of their careers owe more than they own. But you can't solve this problem if you don't know that it exists, which is why it's so important to keep tabs on your financial well-being. And then hopefully over time, as you track your net worth, you'll find that your income increases, and as you pay off your debts, your outgoings will reduce. And so what might at the time be a negative number will eventually become a positive number. And then this is what I referred to at the beginning of the video as getting to zero. Going from negative £1,000 of debt to zero debt, and then going from zero debt to having £1,000 invested. Like we keep saying, guys, focus on the direction and not the speed. So if it takes you a year or two to get to zero, then it's taken you a year or two to get to zero. Great. You know, now you're in a position to move forwards, but you won't be in that position unless you know what your net worth is at any one time. And you might well have heard the quote that what gets measured gets managed. So the more frequently you check in with yourself, the more quickly you'll see yourself improve in terms of financial well-being. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Make sure to like the video if you did, and be sure to also subscribe to my channel if you find this content useful. Now, for my next video, you might have noticed over the past few months that stock markets around the world are at or near all-time highs. This at a time when economies are starting to struggle. If that's the case, why are stock markets so high? Well, to explore this phenomenon and very much more, look out for my next video in a few days' time, and I'll see you there.